So for this presentation, we're going to talk about Dunhuang. And Dunhuang, located at the western end of Gansu Corridor and at the eastern end of the Takahama Desert, was a very important historically. For many periods of Chinese and Inner Asian history, it marked the western limits of direct Chinese administrative control and military authority. Located near one of the important nodes of the roads across Eurasian, Dunhuang experienced a variety of cultural influences. The Cave of the Thousand Buddhas, as known as the Mogao, are a magnificent travel trove of the Buddhist art. They are located in the desert, about 15 miles southeast of the town of Dunhuang in northeastern China. By the late 4th century, the area had become a busy desert crossroads on the caravan routes of the Silk Road linked China and the West. Traders and the other travelers stopped at the town to secure possession, pray for the journey ahead, and give thanks for their survival. Records state that in 366 monks carved the first caves into the cliff, stretching about 1 mile along the Dunhuang River. The Buddhism architecture started in Three Kingdoms and Sixth Dynasty. During Three and Tang Dynasty, Mogao architecture gets to a higher success. Dunhuang has a history of more than 2,000 years. Before the Qing and Han Dynasty, there were ethnic minorities. At the beginning of the Western Han Dynasty, the Huns of Mobile drove away a few favored ethnic groups and occupied Dunhuang. During the Han Dynasty, the Western Han army defeated the Huns, and Dunhuang was included in the territory. The emperor built the Great Wall in the north of Dunhuang in order to protect the strategical location of Dunhuang. During the period of Six Kingdoms, the Central Plains was chaotic at this time, but Dunhuang was relatively safe, so people came to Dunhuang to avoid chaos. At this time, Dunhuang has produced a group of well-known Confucian scholars, and the traditional culture of the Central Plains has become very mature in Dunhuang. Buddhism monks who traveled west also came to teach in Dunhuang, which promoted the development of Dunhuang Buddhism. In the Three Dynasty, the north and south were unified. The Silkroad was kept smooth and the trade was prosperous. Imperial Wen and Imperial Dine advocated Buddhism and frequent economic and cultural exchange between China and the West. Dunhuang culture feature condenses the Han culture from the Central Plains and the culture from India, West Asia, and Central Asia. During the ancient chaos in Tang Dynasty, Chuba took the opportunities to capture Longyu and Hexi. 2 years after the founding, Chuba occupied Shanzhou and implemented Chuba administrative economic system and customs. However, the Chuba was greatly weakened in the late Tang, which provided opportunity for the army to recover Dunhuang. And the regiment and the Great Yi army of the Zhang family reverted to the Tang system and the implementation of Hanization, which stabilized the political situation in Dunhuang. Buddhism continues to build temples and rituals under the protection of Great Yi army and the Zhang family. In the Song Dynasty, the Cao regime established a good relationship with the Central Plain Dynasty and the surrounding ethnic minority regions, not only maintain a relatively stable situation in the territory, but also maintaining a smooth Silk Road. which promote the cultural exchange between Dunhuang and the Central Plains and Western regions, created conditions for the continued development of Dunhuang Buddhist art. Unfortunately, because of the development of the maritime Silk Road, Dunhuang Mogao grottos lost its important position as a transition station between China and the West and a gateway to the West, but it still received attention and was still being built until later. And here it shows the present-day location of Chenghuang. It's still at the same place and belongs to China. This is the plan of Chenghuang. And you can see the site has been built along a mountain. And here's another site plan. And from the 4th century to the 14th, Buddhism cave sanctuaries were continuously carved out in 4 or 5 tiers on the cliff face of an enormous hill and that faces east along the Don River. At this height, as a Buddhism complex in the 8th century AD, the complex is believed to have comprised more than 1,000 caves. A total of 492 caves with wall painting and sculpture survived, and the earliest of which date to the early 5th century AD. A hoard of old and rare manuscript was also found at Dunhuang during the world's oldest completely printed book. The Dunhuang grottos are excavated on the loose, rocky conglomerates, which cannot be carved in detail. They use the art form and clay structure paint and mural painting. Casu use artificial wooden frames as borders and bundles of red grass and externally applied grass mold. Through the combination of shaping and depiction, it expresses human skin, visual experiences, flowery hair, and the texture of clothing. The murals are painted on the restored stone wall with 2 or 3 layers of grass and mold. Through layout and positioning, drafting, coloring, and shaping complete the painting of the mural image. The art of Chenghuang Grot is a comprehensive art integrating architecture, colorful structure, and morals. The shape of the grot built depends on the content and function. Casu is the main body of the grot heart, and the main idol of worship is placed in prominent position in the grot, or the central tower, or the altar, and connected with the surrounding moral content. The color is harmonious. Morals are an important part of the art of Dunhuang Grot, suitable for experiencing the complex scenes and rich content. The Buddhist shrines of the grot and walls and tops of the caves are covered with colorful murals, with the colorful structure that reside in the main position. They complement each other and complement each other to form a complete cave art. Cave temples are a fundamental of Buddhist architecture in China. They were carved and remain in most parts of China. Wherever there are Buddhism, if it was possible to carve such space were created for worship and meditation. Most of the Buddhist cave temple sites trace their histories to the period between Han and Tang dynasty. Sculpture and painted Buddhist imagery survives in most of them, and the majority also have been documented. In addition, the arrangement of the camps within single caves and the arrangement of caves in groups inform us about the other types of Chinese architecture in the same period. The groups and niches of Norman contain the largest and most impressive collection of Chinese art in the late Northern Wei and Tang Dynasty. It located at Luoyang. This works entirely devoted to the Buddhism religion. Represents the high point of Chinese stone carving. Together with representation of architecture in Buddhist cave temple, there is another one cave temple which is especially important for understanding Buddhist architecture in China. The ancient cave 16 at the Dunhuang is an example of several features noted already in this period architecture, namely the combination of simple basket sides and inverted V-shaped structure across the lintel and underneath the roof earth. The tradition of entering the Buddhism hill via a one-bay deep porch cave temple, which sometimes are arranged in wood to the Buddhism cave temple, and the use of technical claims which can be tracked back to Han Dynasty, and the paneling of the experienced exterior of buildings as heavily as it done today. There are 735 caves in Mogao Groves in Dunhuang. There are mainly three types of caves, except for a few of the cave-shaped name. They are not visible in a historical record, and there is no folk oral circulation. They are classified and named according to the archaeology characters of the cave. So the first cave we're going to talk about is a type represents the type of central pillar, and the picture showing is the cave 285. This cave was structured during the Dachong era in Western Wei. According to the inscriptions on the north wall, which has dates of the 4th and 5th year of Dachong era of the Western Wei, and it is the dated earliest cave among the Dunhuang caves. The main character, main character of the this space is the main chamber is square in plan and has been truncated pyramidal ceiling. A structure of a square altar was made in the center in the Ring Dynasty, and there are 4 symmetrical cells on each side of walls. Inside or at the entrance of some cells are the remains of the pagoda of the Ring Dynasty. The ceiling center highlights a parasol design, while the 4 slopes are covered with the image from Chinese mysteries such as traditional Chinese gods and protectors of Buddhism north. And here is also a section that shows the quality of space. For this kind of caves, you need to go through it, and then you see a huge statue in front of you at the middle, and you can go around it to worship it. And the first type seems to drive it from first type of this cave seems to drive it from the India Vihara type. It consists of the rectangular hall with a ceiling in the shape of truncated pyramid. It resists nature, holding a situated in the west wall, facing the entrance, and small cells alongside wall. Constructed in Northern Wei Dynasty and located on the middle section of the cliff, this is the earliest central pillar cave at Mogao, and it has a gabled ceiling in front of and a flight ceiling in the back. Under the 2 ends of the beam of gobbled with ceiling and the modular roof on both slopes were wooden brackets, a structure of traditional Chinese architecture. In the geometry of this cave 254 could be understood as a truncated pyramidal ceiling. Between the rafters are images of celestial beings holding lustres. The flat ceiling in the back is connected to the ground by the central pillar, which has nature in the four sides of various statues. And this second type consists of a massive colonnaded pillar dominating the back section, the front face of which is covering with a large niche, and with smaller niches at the side. The pillar resembles those found at the Khazil and the Komtura caves in Central Asia, but mine originally had been derived from India Katia cave, which housed a stupa for ritual circumambulation. The first two types are found in caves of 5th and 6th century AD, while the third type predominated from the 7th century onward. In some large caves of the 9th and 10th century of niche is replaced by the platform towards the rail to support structures. This truncated paradise ceiling is square in plan, with a niche for statues in the west wall and a ceiling in the shape of a truncated pyramid. And this is the a picture that shows the geometry of the Mogul Growth Cave 85. And here's the section. And because of the plan of Palace Cave in most square, it is also called a square cave. It is also known as the temple cave because its similar function. This kind of growth is not only the enduring one in Mogul growth, but also the most typical one in Chinese growth. Compared with the central pillar growth, this growth is specially and it has a wide field of vision due to the removal of central pillar. This is the most famous Mogul cave in Dunhuang. Cave 17 is also a sample of the temple hall. Cave number 16 to 17 has been built together, and Cave 16 was built between 851 to 867. A 3-story wooden eaves was built on the cliff in front of the caves, so it is commonly known as the 3-story building. It was built under the auspices of King Choice in the 32nd year of Guangxu of Qing Dynasty. It is then numbered as Cave 17. Therefore, the 3-story building is also one of the few caves in the caves. Among them, the 17th cave, as known as the Tibetan Scripture Cave, is located on the north wall of Dao Road in the 16th cave, and was built in the late Tang Dynasty. It was originally a shadow cave of the Western monks in the late Tang Dynasty, Hongbei. At the beginning of the 11th century, due to the war and other reasons, more than 50,000 Buddhist texts, Buddhist paintings, ritual instruments, and other religious and social documents are hidden here. And in 1900, this secret chamber was discovered by chance when Chinese monk Wang Yuanzhang cleared up the sand. However, from 1905 to 1915, British Steam, French, Persian, and Japanese jewel ritual and Russia or Luxembourg all came one after another. They used no price to buy from monks, and there are nearly 40,000 ancient documents missing. The Tibetan scripture building and the Fatang are merged into a two-story building, which is located behind the Buddha and the Buddha Hall. The Dunhuang Hall is known as the lecture hall. It is the place where the Dunhuang and Hanji really are high. The hall's characters are, in addition to the general placement of Buddha statues, try to sit, bell, and drum in the hall. The seat is for the drum. The bell is on the left and the drum is on the right. It is used to strike the bell before drumming. An image symbolized the evangelization of Buddha is hung behind the seat. A podium is set up before the seat of Buddha, on which sits a statue of a small Buddha is used as a symbol to listen to the Buddhas. Dunhuang was an important station on the Great East-West Trade Route, which connected different cultures together, especially China, India, Central Asia, and other Asian countries with the Western world. The cutting and the desiccation of the caves began in 366 and built up in the early Tang Dynasty. The other important part which may show the influence of Silkroad is Buddhist painting and sculpture in the caves. During the 1,000 years of artist activities at Mogul, the style of the wall paintings and sculptures changed, in part a reflection of the influence that reached it along the Silk Road. The early caves show greater Indian and Western influence, while during the Tang Dynasty the influence of the latest Chinese painting style of the imperial court is evident. During the 10th century, Dunhuang became more isolated, and the organization of a local painting academy led to mass production of paintings with a unique side. The art also reflected the changes in religious belief and ritual at the pilgrim sites. In the early caves, Jataka stories were commonly described. During the Tang Dynasty, Pure Land Buddhism became very popular. This promoted the Buddha Ambyutta, who helped the believer achieve rebirth in his Western paradise, where even sinners are permitted, sitting within clothes, lotus poles, listening to the heavenly sounds and the sermon of the Buddha, thereby purifying themselves. Han Buddhism buildings are distributed in a vast area of China, affected by the traditional thoughts and culture of the Han people. The emphasis is not only on the function of spreading Buddhist culture, but also on the social function of maintaining ethical concepts and hierarchies. Most Buddhist buildings form structural hierarchical sequence during the roles of racial system. The sense of esteem and informants penetrate all levels of Buddhist architecture. So for here, I try to compare the India and China Buddhist architecture together, and on the left is the Ura Caves, Cave 16 of the Kalistansa Temple view from the top of the rock, and the right is what we talk about today, the Mogul Caves view from the top. So if I'm going to divide it to three parts. The first part is the actual architecture form. So most of the Buddhist sites in India are mainly groves and pagoda temples, surrounded by four sides presenting a form with strong cohesion. Worshipping around the towers is an important spiritual activity, and the overall architectural form is relatively simple and really clear. But most Chinese monasteries are palace style and courtyard style. The main mountain gate, Buddha Hall, and Fa Hall are arranged on the north-south central axis. The east-west direction is flexible, expanded in the form of courtyards, and the overall architectural form is gorgeous. The tower has been moved out of the central axis, not the center of gravity of the main practice activities. Grottos and wilderness are no longer the main place of spiritual practice. The second point is the construction method. So for India temples, most of them are dominated by brick and stone structure. The roof of the tower is in the shape of ball, decorated with pillows, umbrellas, and frieze wheel, which later evolved into the form of Vajra shrine tower. However, for Chinese architecture before Sui and Tang Dynasty, monasteries were usually built in front of the temple or in the center of the house. Since then, Gantt statues have become popular. The Buddhist temple have generally replaced stupas. The hall is gradually transformed into a pavilion with 7 to 9 floors, including wood, brick, stone, copper, iron, and glazed brick towers. The monastery has a wooden structure as a skeleton and a frame-like structure. The standardization of building units is based on the principle of plane layout the axis as a group. Later, a more complicated structure and color decoration were developed. And the third one we need to mention is the space layout. In terms of the Nalanda University site, monks study, smell, practice, and the old worship actions are the main spiritual components for India structure. In other words, the monastery is at the college and is the life of drama. For Chinese Buddhist architecture, most monasteries in China today have more space to worship and is tourists, and are isolated from the monks' college. Only a few monasteries take the life of monks, teaching method practice as the main core space, or integrate into the main space. And here is the key architecture terms I have for this presentation, and that's it. And here you can take the time to look at it, and that's my presentation. Thank you.